Good afternoon. This is Kathleen Drew, Chair of the Energy Facility Site Evaluation Council, calling our June meeting to order. Ms. Grantham, will you call the roll?
Certainly, Chair Drew. Department of Commerce,
Kate Kelly, present.
Department of Ecology, Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Sorry, Ecology, Eli Levitt, present.
Thank you. Back to Department of Fish and Wildlife. Department of Natural Resources,
Lenny Young, present.
Utilities and Transportation Commission,
Stacy Brewster, present.
Local Government and Optional State Agencies for the Horse Heaven Project for Department of Agriculture,
Derek Sanderson, present.
for Benton County,
Dave Sharp, present.
this is for Horse Heaven, Benton County, Ed Burrows.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Seeing him.
I gotta wait.
No problem. For Badger Mountain, Douglas County,
Jordan Julio, present.
for the Watoma Solar Project for Benton County, Mr. Sharp.
Present.
Thank you. Washington State Department of Transportation, for the Hop Hill Solar Project for Benton County, Paul Crouppen. For the Carriger Solar Project for Klickitat County, Matt Childs.
Child, present.
Thank you. For the Assistant Attorney Generals, John Thompson. Jenna Slocum.
Jenna Slocum, present.
Administrative Law Judges, Adam Torum,
Present.
Laura Bradley, Dan Gerard,
Present.
Michael Laripa.
Present.
For EFSEC Council Staff, Sonia Bumpus,
Present.
Amy Hofkemeyer,
Present.
Amy Moon,
Amy Moon, present.
Stu Henderson,
Stu Henderson, present.
Joan Owens,
Present.
Dave Walker,
Present.
Sonia Scavland,
Present.
Lisa Massengale, Sarah Randolph,
Present.
Sean Green,
Present.
Lance Caputo,
Present.
John Barnes,
Present.
Osta Davis, Joanne Snarsky,
Present.
Alex Shiley.
Present.
For the operational updates, Kittitas Valley Wind Power Project, excuse me, Eric Malbardis.
Present.
For the Wild Horse Wind Power Project,
This is Sarah Randolph. I will be speaking for Wild Horse.
for the Grace Harbor Energy Center,
Again, this is Sarah Randolph. I will be speaking for Grace Harbor.
Chehalis Generation Facility,
This is Jeremy Smith. I'm present.
thank you. Columbia Generating Station,
For Columbia Generating Station, this is Mary Ramos.
thank you. Columbia Solar, Goose Prairie Solar,
Cody Burchell, present.
and do we have someone for the Council for the Environment?
Yeah, Sarah Reineveld, present.
Thank you. Chair, there is a quorum for the regular council, Horse Heaven Council, Badger Mountain Council, Watoma Solar Council, Hop Hill Council, and Carriger Solar Council. Thank you.
Thank you. You, council members, see the proposed agenda in front of us. Is there a motion to adopt the proposed agenda?
Lenny Young, so moved.
Second?
Eli Levitt, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Agenda's adopted. Moving on to the meeting minutes, we have two sets of meeting minutes in front of us. One from the May 16th Carriger Solar Land Use Hearing Minutes, and one from the May 17th monthly meeting minutes. Bringing the May 16th Carriger Solar Land Use Hearing Minutes in front of us, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Matt Childs, so moved.
Second,
Stacy Brewster, second.
Chair Drew,
Are there-
really quick, apologies. I did not get the minutes into the council packet somehow, so I will be pulling them up briefly.
oh, okay. I
Apologies.
don't have, no worries. I have no corrections. I don't know if anyone else does. Does anyone have corrections? Hearing none, let's just take a vote on approving the May 16th Carriger Solar Land Use Hearing Minutes. All those in favor of approval say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the May 17th monthly meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Kate Kelly, move to approve.
Thank you. Second,
Stacy
Kate
Brewster.
Kelly. Thank you. I only have one correction that I saw. There's feedback. If whoever has their mic open, please turn that off. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. The only correction I found was on page 14, line 15. The word rider, R-I-D-E-R, should be writer, W-R-I-T-E-R. Are there any other corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the May 17th monthly meeting minutes as amended, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Meeting minutes are approved. Moving on to our operational updates, Kittitas Valley Wind Project. Eric Malbardas.
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, EFSEC Council and staff. This is Eric Malbardas with EDP Renewables for the Kittitas Valley Wind Power Project. I have nothing non-routine to report.
Thank you. Wild Horse Wind Power Project, Ms. Randolph.
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, council members and staff. For the record, this is Sarah Randolph, Site Specialist for Wild Horse Facility. The facility update is provided in your packet. There are no non-routine updates to report. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Chehalis Generation Facility. Jeremy
Good
Smith, I
afternoon,
think.
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, Council and EFSEC staff. I'm Jeremy Smith, the maintenance manager at the Chehalis Generation Facility. We only have one non-routine thing. The plant manager has recently resigned his position, and we're proceeding forward with filling that position.
Thank you. Good luck with the search. Moving on to Grays Harbor Energy Center, Ms. Randolph.
Chair Drew, council members and staff. The facility update is provided in your packet. There are no non-routine items to report. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Thank you. Columbia Solar. Is Mr. Cushing there or are Ms. Randolph? It looks like there are no non-routine items to report there as well. Moving on to Columbia Generating Station, Ms. Ramos.
Good afternoon, Chair Drew, EFSEC Council, and staff. For the record, this is Mary Ramos with Energy Northwest. I do have with me in the room Marshall Schmidt and then also Felicia Nahara Paxton of Energy Northwest as well. For WNP 1 and 4, I do not have any non-routine items to report. I do have one item to report for Columbia Generating Station. For Columbia Generating Station on Tuesday, June 13th, when Columbia Generating Station was shut down for a refueling and maintenance outage, the facility experienced an unintended loss of no more than 300 gallons of oil from a turbine oil heat exchanger when a tube failed during routine maintenance. The oil, which is labeled Mobile DTE 732, is not hazardous according to the safety data sheet for the product. The oil was lost to the site cooling system, which consists of 6 cooling towers, an intake structure in the river, and a discharge pipe to the Columbia River. The discharge, also termed as blowdown, is authorized by a National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit, which has been issued by EFSEC to Energy Northwest. Once the failure was identified, the circulating water system was immediately isolated and discharge to the Columbia River ceased. Energy Northwest notified the U.S. Coast Guard, Washington State Emergency Management Division, and EFSEC of the potential discharge to the river on the day that it was identified, which was June 13th. Washington State Department of Ecology and Energy Northwest conducted independent visual observations of the Columbia River near the Columbia Generating Station discharge outfall on June 13th and confirmed no visible oil sheen observed on the Columbia River. Energy Northwest immediately worked with Graymar Environmental Services, an approved and licensed environmental services company, to remove oil from the cooling water system. Graymar assessed the cooling water system on the morning of June 14th to assess and develop a cleanup strategy. Graymar began work to remove oil from the cooling water system using absorbent materials the morning of June 15th.
Attention.
I apologize,
Plant,
there's a plant
attention in the
announcement.
plant. Reactor power is
I'm sorry, there's trouble with the audio. No, go ahead.
I apologize for that interruption. There was a plant announcement and I had to go on mute. So I will continue. So like I was saying, Graymar assessed the cooling water system on June 14th to assess in developing a cleanup strategy. Graymar began work to remove oil from the cooling water system using absorbent materials the morning of June 15th. This strategy used for removing oil has been very effective. As of June 20th, approximately 137 gallons of oil has been recovered, and this estimate is based on the weight of oil-soaked absorbent materials. As of today, no oil sheen is visible on the circulating water system based on visual observations. However, as a precautionary measure, absorbent materials to remove oil from the circulating water remain in place and continue to be monitored. In addition, Energy Northwest worked with Washington State Department of Ecology, Graymar, and EFSEC to develop and implement a pollution prevention strategy for restoring blowdown, in other words, discharge of circulating cooling water to the Columbia River. On June 20th, absorbent booms were strategically placed downstream of the outfall based on river flow and conditions. Blowdown was restarted on June 20th at approximately 10:51 a.m. for about 8 hours. During the discharge period, Graymar Ecology and Energy Northwest were on boats on the river near the outfall to visually monitor for oil sheen. In addition, drones were used to support the river monitoring. No visible oil sheen was observed by boat or drone. Energy Northwest has been providing frequent updates to Ecology and EFSEC on the status of the oil recovery and during the planned restoration of blowdown on June 20th. Communications with Ecology and EFSEC continue as the work progresses. And I do want to add that Energy Northwest sincerely appreciates the collaboration and ongoing communications with EFSEC and Ecology on this incident. That's all I have to report.
Thank you for your update. Are there questions from council members?
This is Stacy Brewster. Just a quick question. I'm wondering, what will the variables be to determine the cleanup is complete?
Yes, this is Mary Ramos again. So we are continuing communications on the progress with EFSEC and ecology. I'm happy to report that as of today, there's no visible oil sheen on our circulating water system. As far as duration of monitoring in the river, we're continuing those discussions with EFSEC and ecology, and we have another meeting scheduled at 4 p.m. this afternoon. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from council members?
Chair Drew, this is Lenny Young. I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think you mentioned that 137 pounds of oil has been recovered so far from the assorbent materials. Is that correct?
137 gallons of oil. That was
Okay.
an estimate based on yesterday, and it's based on the weight of the oil-soaked absorbent materials that we've gathered so far.
Okay.
Those absorbent materials are continue to be in place to recover as much oil as possible from our circular water system.
So roughly a little less than half of the oil has been recovered.
That's correct, and I do want to emphasize that the 300 gallons is a very conservative maximum potential release.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions from council members? Well, we'll continue to look forward to updates from you. Thank everybody for their response during this effort, and appreciate your ability to give us this complete report today. Thank you. Moving on to Goose Prairie Solar Project update. Mr. Birchall, welcome. I don't know that we've heard from you before.
Hi, no, this is my first meeting, so apologies if this isn't how it normally goes, but should I just go ahead and read off of the template or update form? I mean,
Just provide us
goes?
this, and you're just undergoing construction, so just give us an overview of what's happening and what you expect is next, and you can keep it
Sure,
short.
yes.
And answer questions if there are any. Yeah.
Got it. Yep. So really the project's in a soft mobilization phase right now, with full mobilization looking to be happening either at the end of next week or the beginning of July. So this time next month, the update will be a little bit more substantial, but at this point, it's just mobilization at the moment, with construction starting probably first week of July.
Do you have an estimate of how long construction might take?
Right now, we're looking at a completion date of late October of 2024. Yeah, at this time, that's our EPC's current schedule, so about 16 months.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions from council members? Thank you and welcome again.
Thanks.
Moving on to the High Top and Austria project update. Ms. Randolph.
Council members and staff, for the record, this is Sarah Randolph, Site Specialist for High Top and Austria Facilities. EFSEC staff are coordinating with the certificate holder on submission of pre-construction plans and schedules. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to Whistling Ridge Energy Project update. Mr. Caputo.
Thank you, Chair Drew and council members. For the record, my name is Lance Caputo, and I am the siting specialist recently assigned to the Whistling Ridge Energy Facility. On March 2nd, 2022, EFSEC received a request from Whistling Ridge Energy LLC for a 3-year extension of its site certification agreement. Whistling Ridge Energy LLC is the certificate holder and owner of the proposed facility. Twin Creeks Timber LLC is the owner of Whistling Ridge Energy. The current agreement will expire in November of this year. The certificate holder's request will extend the site certification agreement until November 2025. The certificate holder is requesting an extension to review the financial and environmental feasibility of constructing its proposed facility, approved facility. Updated environmental studies, some of which are species-specific and seasonally sensitive, need to be performed, hence the request for 3 years. On March 16th, 2022, EFSEC received a request from Twin Creek Timber LLC that they intended to submit a transfer request of ownership of Whistling Ridge Energy and requested the council consider both requests simultaneously. On April 27th of this year, EFSEC received a request for transfer of ownership from the certificate holder. Staff will schedule a public informational meeting and will coordinate with the council on its availabilities. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
So the 3 years is from that first date in 2022, is that correct?
Well, from the date that the certificate agreement will have expired, it would have expired in November of this year. So they're requesting 3 years from this November, upcoming November.
Okay, so that's 2026. Okay, Ms. Hofkemeyer?
Thank you, Chair Drew. I just wanted to jump in and indicate that Mr. McMahon is present on the line for some of these questions if the council has additional questions about Whistling Ridge or the requests that have been submitted.
I'm just not sure if I heard the date right. So what date is it that they're asking for the extension until? Mr. McMahon, maybe?
Thank you, Chair Drew. Appreciate the opportunity to respond to the questions. Tim McMahon for the record, and I represent Twin Creeks Timber. Lance struggled with that, is difficult to say quickly. And just to do a really quick rewind, and I don't want to take very much time here because really this is all aimed at having a public meeting in the near future. The key thing that we really need to do here is to transfer the site certificate so that you have the right billing entity. Whistling Ridge Energy is the project, and there is an LLC, Whistling Ridge Energy LLC. But the way that the council staff interprets this, and I don't disagree, is really the upstream owner that's responsible for making payments and staying on top of the conditioning of the project, et cetera. So that is Twin Creeks Timber, and we've provided you with some considerable financial information that we can talk about when we actually head into the adjudication itself. There is, I would say that there is some debate about the expiration of the site certificate. That's something we'll need to talk about when we actually do meet here. But I would say the shortest time frame that we would be asking for it would be assuming expiration of the site certificate this fall in 2018, and for an additional 3-year period is what we're requesting in order to
2026.
Yeah, 26. Yeah, 20. Excuse me. Yeah, and Greg Corbin, by the way, from TCT is on the line as well. So we will be requesting the extension in order to determine the feasibility of continuing with this project, and we are asking the council's authorization to do so. So I guess, I'm available for additional questions, but I don't really want to, kind of move into argument about the merits of this because that's really what
No.
the upcoming hearing is for.
That's fine. I was just checking, but we'll get back to the date after we hear more information
Right.
at the public meeting. Mr. Young.
Yeah, I just looking at the document that's on the screen in the first paragraph, it looks like it says the extension is requested to November 2025.
And
Yeah.
that's what I heard Mr. Caputo say, so that's why I was raising the question. But that's okay. We'll hear more as it goes on. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and Chair Drew, if I could just clarify one quick thing, that document was written a year ago. So
Right.
we were asking for a 3-year extension, which would put us at 2026.
Okay. Thank you. And what we need to do, council members, is to conduct not an adjudication, but a public informational meeting. And that will be the next step, and that will be a full presentation by the certificate, well, let's just say by Twin, okay, now I'm forgetting the
Twin
name.
Creeks Timber, yeah, it's
Twin
Yes.
Creeks Timber.
Twin.
or the
Thank you.
certificate holder.
Certificate holder, about the change in ownership, which would officially make them the certificate holder.
There you go.
So that's the complicating factor here. Okay, so we will be able to discuss this in more detail with the public present at a virtual public informational meeting as soon as we schedule it. Other questions?
Thank you, Chair Drew.
Thank you. Moving on to Desert Claim Site Certification Agreement Amendment Update, Ms. Moon.
Yes, good afternoon, Council Chair Drew and council members. Just again, for the record, this is Amy Moon providing a project update on Desert Claim. At the May 2023 council meeting, I provided an update on the Desert Claim project detailing the receipt of a request to amend the Desert Claim Site Certification Agreement. We shorten that to SCA. The request was received from EDF Renewables on May 5th of 2023 and was a request to extend the deadline for completing construction by 5 years from the current date of November 13th, 2023 to November 13th, 2028. The signed certification agreement authorizes the certificate holder to construct the project such that substantial completion is achieved no later than 5 years from the date that amendment number 1 was approved by the council. So we had an SCA and then we had amendment number 1 to that SCA. The council approved that on November 13th of 2018. Therefore, the current SCA substantial completion date is November 2023. Review of the extension request is being completed by EFSEC staff in consultation with the EFSEC legal counsel under the Washington Administrative Code 463-68-080. An informational meeting on the SCA amendment is scheduled for Thursday, July 13th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Does the council have any questions?
Are there any questions? So at that meeting, we can expect a full presentation from the certificate holder as well as comments from the public. And that too will be a virtual meeting.
Yes, thank you, Chair Drew.
Thank you. Moving on to the Horse Heaven Wind Farm project update, Ms. Moon.
Good afternoon again, Council Chair Drew and council members. I'm providing an update on the Horse Heaven Wind Project. EFSEC staff continued work on the preparation of the final environmental impact statement or final EIS. Staff are currently engaged in reviewing revisions to the final EIS as prepared by our consultant WSP Golder. EFSEC staff are also coordinating final EIS revision reviews by Washington State agency experts in resource topic areas such as wildlife and habitat, vegetation, and water resources. Preparation of the final EIS includes incorporation of comments received from the public and agencies during the draft EIS public comment period, which was held December 19th of 2022 through February 1st of 2023, in which over 2,500 written and oral comments were received. Part of responding to the comments received on the draft EIS is to evaluate updated and additional information received. Responses to data requests on air quality, visual, water, and transportation are currently being evaluated and used to update the draft environmental impact statement. In addition, EFSEC staff continue to actively engage with Washington state agencies regarding potential impact analysis and mitigation opportunities. The final EIS preparation is also informed by the updated application for site certification submitted by the applicant in December 2022. In addition, an updated application scheduled for submittal after adjudication, which is a separate process from preparing the environmental impact statement under SEPA, will also inform the final EIS. EFSEC staff would also like to inform the council that along with the pre-file adjudication testimony already available, additional submissions will be added to the council SharePoint for review as we approach the scheduled adjudication hearings. Does the council have any questions regarding the project update?
Are there any questions for Ms. Moon about the project update?
Okay, hearing
Go ahead with
none.
the
Okay.
extension request. Go ahead.
Okay, so on the extension request, EFSEC staff worked with the applicant to establish an updated commitment date to complete the processing of the Horse Heaven application for site certification. This new date referred to as the extension date as defined in the revised Code of Washington 80.50.100 that requires that the council shall report to the governor its recommendations as to the approval or rejection of an application for certification within 12 months of receipt by the council of such an application or such later time as is mutually agreed by the council and the applicant. The current date to report to the governor is set as July 8th of 2023. However, Scout Clean Energy submitted a third extension request to the EFSEC Council on June 12th, 2023 to extend the application processing of the proposed Horse Heaven Wind Farm application for site certification to January 31st of 2024. A copy of the extension request letter is included in the council packet, and it's on display on our screens. Does the council have any questions regarding the extension request?
So the extension request was received on June 12th and posted to the council's website, and a request as a final action item was put out. Did we receive, as is our practice, we take written comments unless we do not provide enough time for people to make those written comments? Did we receive any written comments on this item?
I'm going to have to refer to the EFSEC office staff. I am not aware of any written comments. Joan or Andrea?
Hi, this is Andrea, Chair Drew. I looked and we did not receive any written comments for the comment campaign we put out last week.
Okay. Thank you. Council members, are there questions? I do see a hand by Shona Volkers, I believe, with the Yakima tribe, and I know we received a letter to the council, but that was about adjudication. This is not an issue of adjudication. This is an issue of what is in front of us is the extension, which we know the project will not be ready to be recommended one way or another to the governor the first week of July. So our practice is not to take public comments if we have given people that opportunity to provide written comments ahead of time. Council
If I may,
members,
Chair Drew, we did submit written comments, and I would just like to make that clear to the council that we submitted a letter commenting on the specific extension request. 3 of the parties did yesterday.
okay, thank you for that. I will poll, let's see. Andrea or Joan, can you pull that up? Okay. Let's pull that letter up. Thank you. We will take a couple minute break here so we can make sure the council can see that.
Chair Drew, this is Sonia Bumpus. I just wanted to mention that when we opened the public comment period for this extension request, that was closed last week. So if this letter, the letter that came in related to requesting more time for the adjudication in light of this extension, if it came in yesterday or what have you, it would be past the deadline to submit comments on this particular action.
Okay. If we have a copy of the letter, I'd like it to be put forward for the council to look at. Thank you.
Sure. Sure. Joan and Andrea, do you have access to the letter?
This is Andrea Grantham. I'm currently having issues finding it within the email. Ms. Volkers, do you know which email you sent it to? If it was maybe to the adjudication group, or did you have it directly listed as a comment for this item?
It was submitted to EFSEC at efsec.wa.gov with the education parties CC'd to the full service list, including EFSEC staff.
I think I've located an email with it.
Chair
Yeah,
Drew,
it looks like
Chair
it
Drew,
came in yesterday.
Yes, I believe I found it.
Chair Drew, Tim McMahon here. If I could just say something very quickly here concerning this matter.
Go ahead.
We were aware that this letter came in because Scout Clean Energy, and by the way, Tim McMahon, Scout Clean Energy, because we were certainly aware of the cutoff time for the letter. We did not respond. We didn't think that was in order. So I have some concerns about the council considering this at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Chair Drew, we have the letter up so that the council can take a look at this. And I just wanted to remind the council
This
also
is an
that
adjudication. I read it as an adjudication letter. Can we see the last page, please? This is an adjudication issue, not an issue about the extension request. From my view here, the extension does not deal with adjudication. Adjudication is dealt with through Judge Turum and the adjudication process.
We would just respectfully request the council be allowed to read the letter that was submitted to the council. Thank you.
We will read it. It is not germane to the issue of whether or not we have an extension of this project. It is germane to the adjudication. It is not germane to the extension request. Council members, are there questions?
Chair, this is Kate Kelly.
Go ahead.
I I just in reading this short letter from Scout Energy, it doesn't really ask for an extension date. I mean, it says that be extended with an expectation of completing the adjudication. So that they are asking for an extension through January 31st, 2024. Is that correct?
Yes, the first paragraph there. And they're explaining why they are asking for that extension request to January 31st, 2024. But that's the request. Okay?
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Other questions from council members?
Chair Drew, this is Lenny Young. Does staff have comments or a recommendation with respect to Scout's request?
Thank you.
This is Sonia Bumpus, the director for EFSEC, and this extension request is an administrative extension. It basically just allows it, which as the letter from Scout discusses, it allows EFSEC the time it needs to complete the SEPA review process, to conduct the adjudicative proceedings, and then to deliberate and make the recommendation. And so staff's recommendation is that the council go ahead and approve this extension request. It's going to allow us to complete our processes so that we can get our recommendation package to the governor. And the hope is that we would complete that before the January 31, 2024 extension date.
Thank you.
Are there questions from council members or discussion?
Chair Drew, this is Kate Kelly. I'm just trying to understand what is the consequence if we were to not approve the extension request.
Ms. Bumpus?
Yes, so when an application is submitted, the applicant provides an initial deposit, and work commences on the review of the application and all of these different processes I just talked about. If the extension request is not granted, essentially, we would cease our review on this application, and the review of this application for site certification would stop. And that would be it.
Other questions?
So by the sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Drew. I was just gonna say that. So by extending the request or providing this extension, it allows the process to continue and to allow us to complete all of these different steps that are part of our process that we need to complete before we can make our recommendation. But if the council were not to extend it, then the work would cease.
So this is Kate again. So the adjudication schedule was set with the assumption that this deadline would be extended by the council.
It was
So, Chair Drew, do you want me to respond?
Please, yes, thank you.
Well, so the adjudication was scheduled based off what steps remained left to be completed. We knew that we would likely need an extension, but in order to complete adjudication. But the question was, we also knew that we were going to need time to complete the final environmental impact statement. And so, our goal is to not do multiple extensions if we don't need to do that. So what we did was we worked with Scout on drafting and finalizing a schedule for the final environmental impact statement. And that helped to inform this extension request here. in hopes that we would not be having to do multiple, for instance, having to do another one right after adjudication, doing another one perhaps after the final environmental impact statement. So by trying to synchronize the schedules that were set for adjudication and what is estimated for the final environmental impact statement, we think we've got an extension request that captures, the time needed to complete the full process. Now, Councilmember Kelly, I would add though that it's possible we would need more time, but we don't anticipate that at this point.
Ms. Bumpus, can you describe the steps that take place after adjudication?
Well, there's quite a bit that goes into it. One of the things that will occur after the adjudication is that the applicant will have an opportunity to submit a final application for site certification. Well, I should say rather a revised or updated application for site certification. This typically reflects things that were proffered through the adjudicative proceeding. And so we would get a updated application for site certification. That information
And
would,
what is, can you say what the time frame is for that updated application after the adjudication?
off the top of my head, I believe it's 60 days. I believe our rules say 60 days is their deadline. Within 60 days of ending the adjudicative proceeding, the applicant must submit an updated application for site certification. I'd want to double check it, but I believe it's 60 days. And so after that occurs, or I should say concurrently, as that is happening, the council would be working with our administrative law judge to prepare findings of fact and conclusions of law, which are based off the adjudicative proceeding. And then once the application for site certification that's been updated is received, the staff will take a look at that. It'll also be shared with the public and the council, posted to our website, et cetera. And we will look at that to see if there's anything in the final environmental impact statement that may need to be tweaked or edited in some way to reflect anything. Usually, and historically, there's not, vast differences between the original application and the application that follows adjudication, but every project is different. And so after those processes are completed, the council would have the final environmental impact statement completed. They would take some time to review that, and then there would be an opportunity to deliberate on the full record, which would be everything from the adjudicative proceeding, the final environmental impact statement, and anything that came in through tribal government to government consultation. And after that, a recommendation would be made to the governor. I am that's very high level. There's a lot more to it, but those are sort of the big highlights.
Other questions from council members, or Ms. Kelly, does that answer your question?
That did. Thank you for that detail.
Is there a motion on the extension request?
Stacy Brewster. I'll move that the council approve the extension request with the date of January 31st, 2024.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Derek Sanderson, second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please, any more discussion, I should say. Is there any discussion about this item? We've had a lot of information. Our council members have comments?
This is Stacy Brewster again. Yeah, this is quite a project and quite a process that takes a lot of time and energy. And I appreciate all the information and all the hard work staff has done. And I think the extra time will definitely give us the opportunity to fully assess this project.
Thank you. Mr. Young?
Would it be fair to say that irrespective of Scout's request, that EFSEC staff would need more time to conduct the process to its conclusion?
So yes, the issue is how our law is structured. Ms. Bumpus, do you want to? So it says that an extension is agreed to by the applicant and EFSEC. Is that correct, Ms. Bumpus?
Correct.
And so in order to do that, the staff and the applicant work together, the staff knowing all the pieces that need to come together, the applicant also understanding that to put forward an extension request, which although I know there are people who have a lot of concern about extension requests, are actually happen with most of our projects that are complex. Because of the amount of review that this one takes, I believe that we very much need this extension. And yes, Mr. Young, because we need it for the completion of the EIS, we need it for the adjudication, we need it for the steps after adjudication, and for all of that to come together so that the council has time to deliberate before we make a recommendation to the governor. So yes, for all those reasons.
Thank you.
Chair,
Other-
this is
Go
Kate
ahead, Ms.
Kelly.
Kelly. Yeah.
In reading the RCW, which is cited in the Scout's letter, it works in the favor of the council. It seems to work in the favor of the council to mutually agree to this extension with this applicant, just as a matter of due diligence and also the complexity of the project. I'll just say that with regard to public comment that may have been or attempted to be submitted on this, it's just so terribly important that we have opportunity to hear from the public. So as this project goes through the process, and I know there's processes for that, but just want to make the point that that's an important role for us as council members is to be part of that dialogue with community and others who have an interest in this. So
yes.
Hope that we can continue that. Another point is on the subject of this schedule and the steps that Sonia just went through. The more communication we can get as council members on what the schedule, what we should be anticipating, and what review processes will be upcoming, would be very helpful for us as part-time council members and real-time state employees. So thank you for that.
Yes, and as this is truly an administrative allowance, as long as it's, we do take public comment on it. We have a parallel process that extending the time frame for the project doesn't rule on the adjudication. The adjudication is, we have a Judge Adam Turum who will be answering on behalf of the council that those schedules requests, and we can provide you with more information on that as well. So I think that is part of the confusion, if you will, for the subject of today's meeting. Since this is about the extension of the project, it is not about the adjudication. Are there more comments by council members? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the extension request, please say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for the robust discussion. Moving on to the Badger Mountain Solar Energy Project update.
Thank you, Chair Drew, and good afternoon, council members. For the record, this is Joanne Snarski. On June 19th, 2023, we received responses to our third data request and also an update to the Badger Mountain Grouse Pellet Survey from this spring's fieldwork. The applicant has also submitted a revised draft of the Cultural Resources Survey, which is currently under review by our contracted agencies and participating tribal nations. We anticipate their feedback by the second week of July. Oh my goodness. There we go. The information provided in response to these data requests shall be used to support the development of the draft environmental impact statement that is currently in progress. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions? Hearing none, thank you. Moving on to, I turned my mic off. Okay, moving on to the Watoma Solar Project update. Mr. Caputo.
Thank you, Chair Drew and council members. This one should be pretty straightforward. On June 1st of this year, the council received a request for a 5-month extension of the application review date. As you will recall, on June 9th at a special council meeting, the council granted this request. The applicant is performing additional cultural resource field surveys as requested by EFSEC staff in order to complete our SEPR threshold determination. I'm available for questions.
Any questions? Thank you. Moving on to the Hop Hill Solar Project update, Mr. Barnes.
Thank you, Chair Drew. And council members, for the record, this is John Barnes, EFSEC staff for the Hop Hill application. Update for May. We received additional materials from Bright Knight, the applicant, a revised cultural resource report, which is being reviewed by council staff in coordination with the Washington Department of Archaeological, and Historic Preservation. We have also received updated project production information from the applicant. These revisions include clarifications to the MWDC generating capacity and percentage of the AC capacity factor. This updated information can be found on the Hop Hill project page on the EFSEC website. We are continuing to coordinate and review the application with our contractor, contracted agencies, and tribal governments. There are no updates to report on, no further updates to report on. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions for Mr. Barnes? Thank you for your update. Moving on to the Carriger Solar Project update, Ms. Snarski.
Thank you again, Chair Drew. Again, this is Joanne Snarski. As you will recall, on June 9th, 2023, the council held a special meeting and voted to extend the timeline for a decision on whether or not to grant expedited review. The extension extends that decision through August 17th, 2023. On June 16th, 2023, we received responses to our first data requests for supplemental information on the proposed Carriger Solar facility. The information we received is assisting us in completing our State Environmental Policy Act threshold determination for this project. Following the May 16th land use hearing for the proposed facility, staff supported the development of the legal brief on the land use consistency the council has received from our Assistant Attorney General, John Thompson. The legal brief is intended to provide council members legal context for your discussion on the project's consistency with local, county, and regional land use ordinances and codes for the forthcoming land use consistency determination. At this time, EFSEC staff would like to request that the council direct staff coordinate with the administrative law judge to prepare a land use consistency order to then be brought to the council for deliberation and potentially for council action at the August council meeting. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions? Council members, so the process for this is that we would ask the staff to work with the administrative law judge to prepare a land use consistency order. I believe we are expecting to get that before the August meeting. We will ask for public comment about land use consistency. We've already had a hearing on land use consistency, but we will take additional written comments before that meeting. And then we will have those comments from the public. The order will be shared with the council members to review before the meeting. And then we would make a decision on the land use consistency order. Are there questions about that?
Chair Drew, this is Matt Child. So we are not voting on the consistency at this point. It won't be until August, if I'm reading things correctly.
Correct. What we would be doing at this point would be directing the staff to work with the administrative law judge to prepare that consistency order. So what we're saying is is the staff recommending that they work with the administrative law judge to prepare a land use consistency order. Ms. Snarsky?
Yes, that's correct.
But we are not deciding that until the August meeting. But we are asking for the order to be drawn up and drafted. Does that answer your question? And it would be for consistency, Mr. Childs.
Yes, that answers my question, I believe. So basically we're asking for the staff to draw up something so we're ready for August, correct?
And we are asking for that to be an order of consistency, land use consistency. Okay.
Okay, I have some things where I do not believe it's consistent. Does that need to wait until August, or should I be in discussions with the staff at this point? I've read the Attorney General's report, and there are a couple things that I do not believe they're interpreting properly. So if the staff's report is going to be to basically do what the Attorney General has said, then I'm not going to be voting for it in August, to the best of my knowledge at this point. Although obviously today is not the voting point. So right. My question is, do my concerns would now be a good time for me to be directing those concerns to the staff, or to the administrative law judge, or should I be waiting until the August when we have a discussion?
Okay,
on that?
I see. As one of our assistant AGs, Jenna Slocum, will comment on that. Go ahead.
Hi, I worked with John in preparing this memo, and I wanted to say that first, I mean, I definitely want to hear from ALJ LaRipa on this and how he sees this process. But from our side, we would very much like to have your input now, Councilmember Childs. it would be very helpful for us in preparing this, working with staff, working with the ALJ, and working through this. I think for the vote, that will come at the August timeline, but getting this hashed out now would be very important.
Thank you. By now, do you mean you want the input right now at the meeting, or should I contact you later in the week?
Right, I meant later in the week. I think we're going to be working on
Okay.
this for the next month, 2 months, something like that. So we'll have plenty of time. But right, I mean, if you have questions right now, we can go into it. It might be helpful with the council there, or you can reach out to us separately. That would be great. Thank you.
I think it'll be just fine for me to reach out to you separately. So
Okay.
I will do that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
If any council members do have questions about the memo from the Attorney General, please reach out to either Ms. Slocum or Mr. Thompson, and they can answer your questions, provide additional information, and we will have a robust conversation about that. You will get the land use consistency order before the meeting to review. So that will be coming later. Are there additional questions? Okay. All those in favor of, oh wait, I need a motion. Okay. Is there a motion to direct staff to coordinate with our administrative law judge and staff to coordinate, which includes our Attorney General staff, to coordinate with the administrative law judge to prepare a land use consistency order to be brought to the council for deliberation and potentially for council action at the August council meeting?
Lenny Young, so moved.
Thank you. A second?
Eli Levitt, second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Chair, this is Kate Kelly, and I've read the memo a couple times, and the possibility exists that we could find land use consistency with some of the part of the site and not with, because there's 3 different zones implicated.
Yes.
Is that correct? Is that and maybe that's something I should follow up with the staff after, but
I think it would be good to follow up because the council has precedent on what consistency is. Ms. Slocum, would you like to comment on what our determination of consistency is based on?
Sure. So we look at past precedents or past cases, past decisions that the council has issued. And in this case, there's a Columbia Solar is the name of the case, where they explained the test for whether or not it's consistent. So in this memo, what we were looking at was whether or not this specific case in Klickitat County fit with the test previously established. So whether at the time of application, facility was consistent in compliance with the land use plans and zoning ordinances, and then specifically at what constitutes land use plans and zoning ordinances, and then the test being whether the pertinent local land use provisions expressly prohibit or by operation clearly, convincingly, and unequivocally prohibit this type of use. So if it can be permitted through some type of separate conditional use permit or provision, or the moratorium is only a short-term suspension rather than an outright prohibition, according to the council's precedent, that would mean that it's still consistent with land use. And I think in this case, we've got, you're right, 3 overlapping zones. I think 2 of them are overlapping, and then all of it is within the energy overlay zone. So you've got these 2, you've got the extensive agriculture and the general rural zone. And then about 2/3 of it also falls within the energy overlay zone. So we looked at each of those separately and tried to see how those would fit under the test. And none of them, as far as we could tell, had an outright prohibition. So I mean, I definitely want to hear from Councilmember Childs on how he would interpret this, but as far as we looked at this from precedent from the council, this would fall within the previous decision in Columbia Solar for finding that it is consistent.
Does that answer your question, Ms. Kelly?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that explanation, Jenna.
Are there any other questions from council members?
So this is Stacy Brewster. So just to get this clear in my head, so with the precedent set prior and consistency doesn't necessarily mean approved. There's still a process for the conditional use permits upcoming. Is that that's correct?
Absolutely. Yep, right.
Thank you.
Our consistency test is a threshold of, is it prohibited? And that's how the council has made its decision prior to now. Any other questions or comments? Okay. We have a motion in front of us. All those in favor of directing the staff to coordinate with the administrative law judge to prepare a land use consistency order to be brought before the council for deliberation and potential action at the August council meeting, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That concludes our agenda for today. Thank you all. There were many complex issues before us, or not many, but a few. I appreciate the conversation, the questions, and the comments, and our business is concluded. The meeting is adjourned.